You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
I have 7 p.m. and if everyone's here, I guess we can call this meeting of the Branford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, March 9th. I have 7 p.m. I'll introduce members of the commission and staff before we start. First, Joe Chadwick. Joe, are you here?
Joe Chadwick is present.
Thank you, Joe. Fred Russo. Fred, are you here?
Fred Russo is present.
Joe Viuzzo. Joe, are you here?
Joe is here.
Marcy Pelusi. Marcy, are you here?
Present.
Thank you, Marcy. Massimo Ligori. Massimo, are you here?
Massimo Ligori is present.
And Sharon Hutner. Sharon, are you here?
Sharon Hutner is here.
Our staff this evening is our town planner, Harry Smith. Harry, are you here?
I am here.
Our assistant planner, Evan Brining. Evan, are you here?
Here.
And our clerk recording secretary, Michelle Martin, is lurking in the cloud somewhere. I am Chuck Anders, chair. And at this point, I'll ask our secretary, Fred Russo, to read the notice of public hearing.
Legal notice, Town of Branford. The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Branford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of public hearings to be held on Thursday, March 7, 2024 at 7 p.m. by remote technology to consider the applications listed below. Information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided on the Commission's meeting agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Application number 24-2.8, special exception for grading, section 6.8, for a garage located at 34 Prospect Hill Road, 32 Prospect Hill LLC, care of John Lightfoot, applicant and owner. Application number 24-2.3, special exception for a marine access facility located at 0 Linden Avenue, Ariga 2 LLC, 1/6 et al., in care of Gerald Khan, applicant and owner. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. Copies are on file in the Planning and Zoning Commission's office at the Planning and Zoning Department, 1019 Main Street, Branford, Connecticut, 06405. Written communications may be sent to the above address or to planning and zoning at branford-ct.gov. Branford Planning and Zoning Commission, C. Andres, chairperson.
Thank you, Fred. We'll follow our normal format for public hearings, which is the applicant goes first, makes his presentation, screen shares with its consultants, or however would like to present it. After the applicant is done, we turn it over to the commission staff. We typically hear a staff report from the commission staff, open it up for questions and comments from commission members. At that point, we'll turn to the public participation. And I'm going to ask Evan in a moment to explain that process, but typically we'd ask that you state your name and address for the record to make your comments. We allow after the public portion, we allow the applicant to respond to any of the public portions and turn it back over to the commission and staff. If they have any questions, we may or may not close the public hearing depending on it goes. Certainly not unusual to have a public hearing last more than one evening. And so with that, Evan, can you just run over with us the process for the participation when it's appropriate by the public and applicants in the public hearing process?
Sure. If your computer has a microphone for two-way communication, you can indicate that you'd like to speak by pressing down at the bottom of your screen. There's a raise hand button. You can also type your comment into the chat. We ask that everyone please state their name when they ask a question or give a comment. And if you're dialing in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand.
Chuck Andrews here. Thank you, Evan. With that, we'll turn to our public hearing items. The first item is Branford Real Estate LLC, care of Arian Pravella, applicant and owner at 544, 558 West Main Street. This is a special exception for a used car dealership. This is an application we had opened and considered at our, we'd actually discussed that at our last meeting on February 15th. And I believe that we had recommended the applicant at least consult with a landscape architect on the landscaping issues. And Evan and Harry, what is the status on that? Is the applicant understand they're still in that process, or what's going on with that?
They have asked to continue the meeting to the March 21st Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. They granted an extension to the public hearing, and they have been inquiring with landscape architects to prepare a plan for that meeting.
Great. Okay. So with that, for this item number 1, then we will continue this matter to our next meeting, which is on Thursday, March 21 at 7 p.m. Same process as for this one, that it'll also be a Zoom meeting. So if you're here on that item, that's being continued to our March 21st meeting. That's in 2 weeks, 7 p.m. With that, then, that matter's continued. We'll go on to items number 2 and 3, which concern the same property. That is 32 Prospect Hill LLC, care of John Lightfoot, applicant and owner. And the property address is 34 Prospect Hill Road. And the first is a special exception for an accessory structure, oversized garage, and also a special exception for grading under 6.8 of the regulations. Is the applicant ready to proceed with those applications?
Good evening, folks. Jim Preddy, Criscolo Engineering, 420 East Main Street in Branford. I'm representing 32 Prospect Hill LLC. Hopefully you can see the map. 32 Prospect LLC actually owns all 4 of these properties, located at the end of Prospect Hill Road. Well, the project is to construct this garage noted here on this property, which is 34 Prospect Hill Road. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. There is an existing home that's remaining. We're showing a new septic system and a driveway. These properties have access off this private easement that goes through this other property. The garage is located here, 26 by 42. We have it 25 feet from the coastal resource, which is the edge of the marsh. The special exception for the grading is more or less for the driveway and a little bit of grading on the side, although I will say that since I've done this, they've done a little exploratory, and this is mostly rock here, so the grading will be very minimal. They'll be pouring this slab basically on rock. I do have also the schematic plans for the garage. This is what it'll look like. It's a 3-car garage with some space above to be used for I think a gym area. There will be no plumbing in the building, so there's not a bathroom or any cooking facilities or anything like that. It's just some extra space for a gym area. As you can see, this particular house is actually kind of pretty small compared to the other houses around here. That's the application.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Mr. Preddy. Evan, did you prepare the staff report? And would you like to review that with us? Staff reports, I guess there's 2 of them.
Yes, I did. Like Mr. Preddy described for us, they're proposing a detached 3-car garage with a 2nd story. That 2nd story will result in a height of 26 feet, which exceeds the 15-foot height requirement for a special exception. That's why they're before the board today. They do meet the bulk requirements of the R3 district. as well as the accessory structure requirements from section 3.8. No landscaping plan was submitted with this application. They meet the parking requirements. No lighting information has been submitted, but I've added a condition that would require any lighting to meet the requirements of section 6.7. And based on the application materials, it appears that the special exception criteria are satisfied. Staff recommends one finding, that the commission finds that the proposed use is consistent with the special exception criteria, and 3 conditions. The first condition is that this approval exclusively applies to the construction of a detached garage with a second floor not to be used as an accessory apartment or additional unit. No change in use from the approved single-family home as a part of this application, and the addition of any other units will require approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Our second condition is that prior to the start of construction, erosion control measures shall be installed, and any measures deemed necessary by the zoning enforcement officer. And our final condition is that any lighting or any proposed lighting would have to meet the requirements of section 6.7.
Chuck understood. Thank you, Evan. Questions or comments from commission members or staff before we open it up to the public? Hearing none, then let's open it up to the public. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this application? Any member of the public wish to comment on this application? Evan, it looks like Evan got grabbed on the phone. Evan, do you see any member of the public who wishes to comment on this?
Just to reiterate, down the bottom of your screen, there's a raise hand button. If you'd like to make a comment or ask any questions, you can also type anything into the chat. I do not see any member of the public that would like to speak.
Okay. Any other comments from the applicant, Mr. Preddy? Any further comments?
No, I think this is fairly simple and straightforward.
Okay. Any other comments from commission members or staff? Hearing none, then we will close these items 2 and 3 as public hearing items, and this may be something we can take up in a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Preddy. That brings us then to item number 4, which is Ariga 2 LLC 1/6 et al. Care Gerald Khan, applicant and owner. The address is 0 Linden Avenue. This is a special exception for marine access facility. Is the applicant ready to proceed with this
one? Yes, Jim Preddy again, Crisco Engineering here in town. The property in question is this property right here. It's a 0.13 acre R3 waterfront parcel without street frontage. It's accessed by an easement through 275 Linden Avenue. The property is developed with a multi-car carport, paved parking area, 55 feet of riprap slope shoreline, and an authorized 36 by 6 fixed pier with a waterward stair system. 2 pulley line mooring systems for 7 dinghies exist within the property's littoral area and communicate with the pier and stair system. And I guess I'd like to show the photos before we get any farther. So this is the right in here is where the property is with the pulley system. The boat mooring is for the owners of Clam Island only, which is right here. You can see it's only about 800 feet or so from the mouth of Maltby Cove. These are the pulley lines that exist there now. This is taken from the picture of the same boats taken from the paved area and the shorefront. These are the stairs that currently come off the end of the fixed dock, which you can see right here. So currently you'd have to walk out, pull your boat in, and walk down these steep stairs here, carrying any items you might be taking out to the island. Right. So what we're here for basically is just to authorize the use. It's owned by 6 owners, of the 7 parcels that make up Clam Island. The waterfront, the property is water dependent, as is developed solely for the use of providing access to the waters of Long Island Sound, specifically for the owners of Clam Island located where I've just described. It provides owner vehicle parking and a mooring system for the dinghies. The site has been used for access to Clam Island for many years. The exact number of years isn't known. The easement for access to the land parcel goes back to 1925. The property has been owned by the owners of the island, using it for access back to at least 1988, according to the assessor's records. The waterfront pier and stair system are old, were originally constructed without DEP authorization. They were authorized after the fact in 2008. The site is now in compliance with state regulations. Currently, the island owners are preparing to apply to DEP again to add a ramp and small float system, so access can be from a float system that's level, and that can be safely access to dinghies without walking down those stairs that I've indicated. The DEP requires that the zoning be in place to allow the water dependent marina use in a residential zone before they can process the application. This fact provoked the special exception application, which is why we're here. Coastal site plans not required, as no work is being proposed. Site has DEP approval for the existing shoreline structures and the property's use. And I think I've covered it. Again, we were just here for the use because the new dock application would be reviewed and approved by DEP. So we're basically trying to get an existing use permitted.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Preddy. You didn't say definitely, you can't say one way or the other whether it's a use that pre-existed zoning, so that's potentially a non-conforming use, or do you know?
No, it's been at least since before zoning. So somewhere around 1925, we think.
Okay. Okay. Evan, did you prepare the staff report on this one?
I did, and like Mr. Preddy described for us once more, the applicant is here for approval of an existing 0.13 acre lot currently used by the Clam Island property owners for parking and a dock used for transportation to and from that island. They're proposing to replace that pulley mooring system with a floating dock. They received authorization from the state of Connecticut in 2008 for pier, and plan to submit additional applications to them for this new floating dock and the ramp going to it. However, the state of Connecticut requires a zoning approval for the use prior to submitting a COP to them. The docks, wharfs, marinas, slip basins, boat storage, and landing use requires a special exception from this commission per section 3.3. They meet the bulk requirements of the R3 district, as they're not proposing any changes to the existing structures or the land. No landscaping was provided. They satisfy the off-street parking requirement. No lighting information has been submitted, but a requirement that any proposed lighting meet section 6.7 has been added to this approval. They satisfy the criteria for section 7.9A, exclusive to marinas, slip basins, boat storage areas, and landings, with the exception that the line requiring that the facility shall be served by a public water system. However, there really isn't a facility on this site for traditional marina use, and should there be a requirement in the future for it, water lines do run through this property and should be accessible in the future. if it's needed. Based on the application materials, it appears they satisfy the special exception criteria. And although this application doesn't require a coastal site plan application, we did send the project to DEEP for comment, and they did not have anything that they would like to share with the commission. Staff recommends the following finding: that subject to compliance with the conditions below, commission finds that the use is consistent with the special exception criteria. We also have a condition for this approval exclusively applies to the use of this property and the adjacent dock, pier, slip basin, or any other water access structures for Clam Island property owners and only Clam Island property owners to access boats used for transportation to and from Clam Island. Any modifications of the proposed use, including but not limited to a commercial marina, shall require additional approvals from the Planning and Zoning Commission. We just felt that we should, have this applicant locked into the proposed use in their statement of use that they submitted to the commission, and should any plans in the future change, that it would have to come back to you guys for an approval. Any proposed lighting would have to be compliant with section 6.7, and that's it.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Evan. My understanding is that this commission doesn't have jurisdiction over this dock itself that's in the salt water. We go to the mean high water, or I don't know where the line is, but that's the extent of our jurisdiction. So we're approving the use on the landward side, even though the use, as I understand from Mr. Preddy, is an existing non-conforming use, and there are no changes presented. Anyway, that's my understanding of this. Are there questions or comments from commission members before we open it up to the public?
Just one. We're putting conditions on, relative to lighting and stuff like that. How do we enforce that? Is there a certificate of zoning compliance that's issued at the end?
Yes, it is handed out at the end, and what that does is allows us to enforce the lighting regulations in residential districts, because section 6.7 only applies to our commercial zoning districts.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Jim Pretty again, Joe, to answer one of your part of your question is there currently isn't any power or water on the site, so there isn't any lighting that exists there now. And activities are limited because of that. And then Chuck, to your question before, I have the deed of the easement that goes to the owners of Clam Islands to access to that piece that is dated 1925, and that's why I said at least 1925.
Okay. I mean, it sounded to me like DEP requires that you get a statement that it's in conformance with zoning or something to that effect.
Correct.
And frankly, a non-conforming use is a valid use. In other words, even if it is a non-conforming use, if it's a legal non-conforming use, that doesn't violate zoning. But it's the use also, I understand, under our residential zone, a wharf or dock area is also allowed in the R3 zone, so it can also be allowed by special permit. So that's that was sort of my question, is why you're not changing anything? The existing use appears to be a non-conforming use since it's pre-existed zoning. You're not changing anything. We don't have jurisdiction over the dockets, over the stuff that's in the water, because that's deep. That's why you're going to the deep. So why are you here? I mean, and it sounds like it doesn't hurt because it's, it is authorized, but that was sort of my question when I was looking at this. But I mean, it doesn't hurt. And frankly, by getting an approval, we get to do things like, restrict it, and it's to this use, so you don't get into issues as to what's an expansion or enlargement, and whether it's illegal and enforce lighting issue. So which sounds like the applicant agrees to. So I don't have any problem with it, but that was just sort of, raising my eyebrows when I heard it. Any other questions, comments from anyone, any commissioners or staff before we open up to the public? Hearing none, then let's open up to the public. Any member of the public wish to comment?
Just to reiterate for everyone, please use the raise hand button down at the bottom of your screen if you'd like to speak. I'll try to catch everyone. You can also type into the chat. And if you're calling in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. I do not see anyone that would like to speak.
Okay. Okay, any further comments, Mr. Preddy?
Nope, I think you, honestly, Chuck, I think you summed it up pretty good for me.
Sure.
We're just here, agreed, it's an existing, use that predates zoning, and the reason we're here is because deep won't let us move to the next step until we come here, so.
Okay. Any further questions, comments from commission members or staff? Hearing none, then we'll close this matter as a public hearing again. I think we can take this up in a little bit. So with that, I think that concludes our public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I think there was someone who wanted to speak, so we'll have to, looks like Mr. Anderson.
Okay. Did we miss
his
that?
hand.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Anderson, I'm going to press a button that should put a message on your screen to unmute yourself.
Got it. You hear me?
Yes.
You hear me okay?
Yes.
I live next door to the parking lot, and a few things. In their proposal, they don't have 100 square foot floating dock that they're proposing to put down there. They're planning on putting a 24-foot ramp out to another short section of dock over to a 50-foot section of dock. Now, when you say dinghies, these aren't dinghies. These are anywhere between 14 and 16 footers. So you have 5 of them there. I have one of them on my line. Jen Greeley's boat is on my line. And as the tide comes in, as you know, it ebbs and flows. So my boat is behind their property or in their littoral rights. And then when the tide changes, their boats are in mine. So you put a fixed object in there, you're going to have my boat on my line hitting their boats on their dock. I don't know if this is the meeting to bring this up at.
Mr. Anderson, that sounds like I think that's probably the DEP permit. I mean, at this point, we're not, I think our jurisdiction ends at the high water line, and the DEP, authorizes the docks. So, and it sounds like that's your concern is that dock. So I would think that's the proper area to do that. What we're authorizing is just the use of the landward property as an area where they
continue to use. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's understood. Okay.
Sure.
Very good. So I'm in the wrong forum then, huh?
Yeah. I think you should raise that concerns. I assume there will be, and if there is not already, a deep permit application for the actual construction or the changes that they're proposing. Mr. Preddy, are you involved in that?
Actually, John Lust is doing the permitting with deep.
Okay, so there is a deep permitting process. That's I'm sure, and I expect Mr. Lust would talk to you.
Well, I think he's in the engineering office there. He should be.
I don't think he works for DEP. Harry Smithtown Planner, I believe he's a private consultant. I mean, you could contact DEP directly. I think it's the Land and Water Bureau Division, whatever it's called.
Yeah. If you have a doc, you probably know who to contact.
I was talking to John Lust at the beginning of the week.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
He knows my concerns.
Okay.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there anyone else, any other members of the public who perhaps didn't get a chance to comment?
Chuck, Fred Russo.
Fred.
I would just like to have it clarified because I'm not a water person, and I don't know that much, if anything, about boats, what they do and they don't do. So I would, and from what the conversation has been so far, we have jurisdiction up to the high mean watermark. There's other agencies that are take care of the rest. So can you or Evan, maybe Evan can submit the application, can he define exactly we as a commission are looking to consider? I'm not really sure. I know our jurisdiction doesn't go out over the water. This application is kind of part of that, and so we just like a clarification about what it is that we're going to eventually vote on.
My understanding, and again, this is what was that they are using the landward, the parcel. It's as a parking area and a launching area essentially for their boats to go to the island, and they've done that since 1925. So that's not, it's a residentially zoned property and there's no house on it, so it's not an accessory use. So that's the principal use of the site. Now, my understanding again from Mr. Preddy is that when you file your application for the dock itself, the stuff that's in the water, one of the things they say is, oh, you have to show that you're conforming with zoning, with the local zoning, that this is allowed. And my response to that, so I understand, okay, they're saying, well, we'll make it official. We'll file the application because the use for a dock wharf area is allowed in a residential zone by special permit. So we'll do it, even though I think it's also allowed as a non-conforming use. In other words, it's a legal non-conforming use is a way you could do it. So I question whether they even need to file this, because it's only for the existing use, which they're not changing, which is pre-existing zoning. And they could have said it's allowed as a legal non-conforming use and get a statement from zoning office and give that with their application. But another way of doing it is to, since the use is frankly allowed by special exception, is to apply for the special exception and do it. So that is my understanding of what they have chosen to do. And frankly, if they do it that way, then we can. Well, sometimes when you have non-conforming uses, you get questions when they change them, whether it's an illegal expansion versus a lawful intensification. You get in the issues. So by making it legal, you kind of take that issue out. Are they doing too much? And we have the opportunity by saying, this is what we're approving. And then, so someone can't come in, they sell the property and some marina comes in and says, hey, you approved this as a wharf. Well, this is making it clear. Or even they say, oh, we can do it as a non-conforming use. This makes it clear that you're just doing what you can do now. And if you want to do anything else, you got to come back. That was one of the proposed conditions. And we'll look at that if you change things. And also you want to add lighting, we want to make sure you comply. So anyway, I have no objection to what they're doing, but that's my understanding. That's what we're voting on, is a special exception for the landward portion of this for operation as a, parking dock, a dock and launching area, which is in fact they already did. Anyway, that was, if the applicant thinks any otherwise, that was my take on reading this.
So basically, we're not sanctioning the wharf that they would put on. That's out of our jurisdiction. We're just
Correct.
reaffirming the use of it is as it is today, seeing that there are no buildings. It's basically parking, something that's been more or less grandfathered in. I just want to make sure that what exactly we're voting on.
Correct. We're not voting on the dock or the
Right.
noise or whether it's whatever it's what the type of that is, because that's beyond our jurisdiction. That's within DEEP's jurisdiction. So we're not approving or disapproving that. We're just the landward side of the thing. That's all we're doing.
Okay, because I know that we received letters from neighbors, and and just and I read them very thoroughly, and I'm asking myself, where is our limitation, or are there limitations? And it sounds to me like, and I better understand what our role is in here. It's really to kind of reaffirm what's already being used without giving permission or taking away permission from doing the dock. That's something that DEEP would take care of.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. There is something called a littoral right that there's a common law right as a property owner abutting waterways. You have a right to use it, but you can regulate that right. But the agency that regulates it has jurisdiction over that is not that's DEEP, not the local town.
Thank you for the update. I appreciate it.
Understanding. Okay, it looks like there's another hand risen. Looks like. Evan.
Yes, it looks like we have someone calling in who would like to speak. So if you're calling in and you ask to rate, oh, there you go. You've unmuted yourself.
Hello?
Hello,
Hi.
we can hear you.
Oh, okay, thanks. My name is Michael O'Connor, live at 46 Maltby Street, right here at the heart of or at the top of the cove. And I guess a couple of questions that I think that may have been answered, but in any event, you all probably are aware of that back in 2008, there was a similar petition filed by a gentleman named Andre Poirier, who lived on Linden Avenue. And he had the same idea, I think. And what happened there was that whole procedure was handled by DEP. And what happened was that they had a large public meeting here in town in which a lot of folks were testifying, including the select woman at the time. And the matter eventually ended up at the DEP headquarters up in Hartford. And the process took a while because, there was a lot of people being heard and it was thoroughly vetted. So I guess what I was kind of confused or quite confused about really was when this new petition came in, instead of, notifying all the folks who had previously been involved in the prior proceeding, this one seemed to only notify one person. And quite frankly, I think a lot of the folks who lived there on Maltby Cove weren't even aware of the hearing because only one person was notified, and I know I didn't even hear about it until today. So I just had some questions about the whole notice process, and I think as probably you have helped to clarify, but I think a lot of people thought tonight we were talking about the dock. Hello?
Thank you, sir. My understanding, we are not this, just like in 2008. We didn't, the proceedings about the dock were a DEP proceeding and not a local planning zoning commission. I think my understanding, our jurisdiction sort of ends at the high water mark, and the shape and however that dock is done, that's a deep proceeding. So that's not what that is. I don't know, Mr. Preddy, do you agree with that?
Yeah, Jim Preddy, I agree. Yes. Deep does their own notifications for that kind of thing. But yeah, this isn't the forum for that. But I will say that per your regulations for the special exception on the land part of it, everybody within 100 feet was sent a letter. So.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to say the only thing I would add, I think, is that because DEP was so thoroughly involved last time, there was a lot of testimony. I think there's a lot of transcripts of testimony. There was a lot of exhibits, a lot of maps, a lot of drawings. In other words, there was kind of a treasure trove of information that developed at that last hearing. It would be kind of a shame to lose all that because, I think it would really be helpful to keep all that information, and I think that could be accessed at DEP. I know the commissioner, the new commissioner, Katie Dykes, I know would be very willing to come forward and go ahead and present everything that she has on it.
And certainly I understand at that DEP proceedings, the history, what was done before, I'm sure that's all relevant. And there's probably a separate process for public hearing process as part of the DEP proceeding, whether you can petition for that. Frankly, I don't know, but it is a separate proceeding. Our jurisdiction sort of ends at whatever that line is, which doesn't include where the docks are.
All right. Well, I guess my only final request, and I think, and of course you fellows are professionals, obviously what you're doing, but I think that, when you issue whatever decision you're going to issue, if you could make that clear, because a lot of people, I think, are really confused about that issue,
Sure.
When I say confused, I'm talking about I think a lot of folks thought that tonight's hearing had to do with the dock.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think we can include something to indicate that this approval applies only with respect to the landward side of the use that's proposed, and that the applicant, in order to construct a dock, must comply with whatever DEP requirements. All
right, folks, I really appreciate you taking the time, and I would really appreciate it if you, in your decision, if you made that clear, because, you know, a lot of people are really confused about that. But listen, thanks very much. I appreciate the fact you folks are willing to donate your time, and it makes what Branford is a great town to live in.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess one more time, is there anyone else from the public? Evan, do you see anyone else who would like to comment?
Just one more time, the raise hand button down at the bottom of your screen, or you can type your comments into the chat. I do not see anyone.
Okay. Okay, then, are there further comments by commission members or staff or the applicant on this? Hearing none, then we'll close this matter as a public hearing. Again, I think it's something we can take up in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have minutes, and I know there were some.
Well, what they said with this hearing.
There are some questions about the minutes, and what I thought was, because that had to do with the landscaping, the committee for the landscaping regulations. Let's take up the minutes when we talk about that later on. So we'll just defer that one and take that up later when we talk about that, because I know Marcy, you had some corrections, and I thought, you know, they were good points. But why don't we just try to take care of the public hearing items that looks like we can take care of. The first ones were items, public hearings number 2 and 3. That's the 34 Prospect Hill Road. That's the special exception for the accessory structure garage, the oversized garage, and the also special exception for grading. Evan, can you, I don't know if you can pull up the staff recommendation. I think we probably need 2 votes on that, right? There are 2 applications. Or probably use the same one, or, you know.
One second. Do you guys see 34 Prospect Hill or my emails?
We see your emails.
Emails.
There we go.
I got
Okay.
a new.
Oh, we lost you there.
I know. Sorry. They switched up the screens on me. Sorry. Here we go. All right.
Perfect.
Okay, so we'll start with the grading one. Is this the 6.8 application?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think you kind of reviewed this. This is, you know, compliance that it complies with the regulations and the conditions, the typical erosion control, installation, and any additional measures to control dust, the standard conditions 1A and B. So I think you reviewed that with us. So, so with respect to the 6.8 application for 34 Prospect Hill Road, does someone want to make a motion? I didn't hear any comments on this, so I'm assuming it sounded good. Sounded like there were minimal grading because of the ledge. It sounded that Mr. Preddy indicated, so probably very limited. So if it looks good, does someone want to make a motion that we adopt the staff recommendation as set forth in front of us with the 1 finding and the 1 conditions, part A and B?
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Motion made by Fred to approve the application by adopting the staff recommendation. Motion made by Fred. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? Looks like the regular members be voting. All those in favor: Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo is in favor.
Joe Vayuzo. Are we here, Joe? Did we lose Joe?
Muted.
Oh. Did we Evan or oh, Joe, did we hear? I see his hand raised and he looks muted.
I will unmute him. Sorry. There we go. Okay.
I'm there. Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
I approve.
Joe.
Okay, Joe.
Who's in favor? Great, thanks. Marcy?
In favor.
Marcy's in favor, and Chair is also in favor. Now we're getting an echo,
Just,
right?
who did the second? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Joe Chadwick.
Thank you.
I don't know why we're getting an echo. Do you know?
Joe's phone.
Okay, Joe,
Oh, the phone and the probably you're watching it on Branford BCTV.
So Joe Valluzzo, can you mute yourself? Will that make it go away?
I could try. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, that appears, I don't hear myself. So, okay. Well, you can unmute yourself when we have comments and when we vote again. Great. Thanks, Joe. Okay. So that was a 6.8 application number 3. And Evan, did you have a resolution for the accessory structure application? That's the grading one, right?
Yes. Sorry. Here we go.
Okay. And those are this is the staff recommendation for the oversized accessory structure. And again, the finding is the finding of compliance. And then there's 2 conditions. Again, is just one is a sort of reminder that it's just for an oversized, it's not for occupancy purposes. And that if they wanted to do that, they would have to come back for that. And also the standard lighting condition on number 2. So if no one has any comments, if someone want to make a motion to approve this application, the oversized accessory structure application for 34 Prospect Hill Road by adopting the staff recommendation as set forth in front of us with the 1 finding and 2 conditions.
Chadwick will make that motion.
Motion to approve by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second?
Fred Russo will second that.
Second by Fred. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo?
Fred Russo is in favor.
Joe Valluzzo? Joe, can you unmute yourself?
We can't hear her.
I just asked him to unmute himself. I think we have to do it.
You are unmuted.
Okay, I approve.
Okay. And I don't hear an echo. Oh, yes, I do. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Joe Valluzzo votes in favor. Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair's also in favor. So that application is approved. So those items for 34 Prospect Hill Road, those 2 items are approved. That brings us then to the 0 Linden Avenue, the special exception for the marine access facility. Maybe you can pull up that staff recommendation. Evan.
Pulling it up right now. And Chuck, I wasn't sure. Did you want me to add a line in saying, portions of the property that lie within the jurisdiction of the town of Branford?
Yeah, that for clear mind, only, yeah, that I would say, I would add a condition that said, that says, with respect to the any proposed dock within the waterways adjacent to the landward part of the property, the applicant must obtain all necessary approvals from the appropriate state agencies, including but not limited to the Department of Environmental Protection, of Energy and Environmental Protection. And put the local planning and zoning commission has no jurisdiction over the approval of docks located within tidal waters. Okay, so this making it clear, I think that the applicant agreed to that. It's you know that you know.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Russo, Chuck,
yeah.
you should add one more word in there. After the word necessary approvals should be for the appropriate state agencies, I think. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, the applicant must obtain all necessary approvals for the appropriate
from
yeah, I think from, right. Okay, so yeah, that's my understanding. They probably didn't need to do this, but this is a permitted use, and this restricts it to the existing use, and they didn't submit a site plan because they're not changing it. So, and it's just the landward portion, and I think this makes clear. It does allow us, to it limits it to the existing use as proposed. I think you say that, right? You say that on here, right? Applies.
Yes. In condition 1.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you say that, make that clear. Okay. So, okay. And we have all the application materials and the pictures and everything else. It makes it clear as to what it is. It's there. Okay. Any comments from commission members? I think it, responds to the public questions, which were more concerned about the dock, understandably. So, okay, with that, then, does someone want to make a motion to approve this application by adopting the finding and conditions set forth in the staff report set before us? Oh, Joe, did you have a comment? Joe Bayuso?
No.
Okay.
I saw your hand up, Joe, so I muted you and figured you have to vote anyway, so.
Okay.
Okay, someone want to make the motion to approve?
Chadwick makes it.
Okay, I understood. Joe Chadwick made the motion to approve the application by adopting the finding and conditions in the staff report that was just in front of us. Is there a second?
Joe Bayuso seconds.
So, second by Joe Bayuso.
Yeah, Joe Bayuso might have actually got there first. I
That's
talked
all right.
over him.
Well, we'll give him the second. So, okay, then all those in favor. Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo is in favor.
Joe Bayuso.
Joe Bayuso in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair's also in favor, so that application's approved. Okay, any correspondence here?
Harry Smith, Town Planner, no, we have no correspondence for this meeting.
Okay. So then, under old business, it looks like all of these matters are scheduled for public hearings on at our next meeting, which is on the 21st. The first one looks like a special exception for an auto body repair on 17 North Main Street, and the last 4 are the Regal site, the PDD proposal. So that's coming up at our next public hearing at our next meeting. So, so that's old business. And then new business, I guess there is a special exception for residential dwelling units, which I understand has just recently come in and has to undergo town center review and a few other things before we review it. Is that correct on that one?
That's correct.
That's correct.
And that's actually a 1 and 2. There's the 6.8, and then I guess 4 Leesville Lane, a special exception for car rental. That's also just received, so we would have to set that up for a public hearing. Correct? Yes. Okay, and we'll just set that up in the normal process. This brings us into other business, and there's a request for bond release for 65 Dorchester Lane. Harry, what's that about?
I'm going to defer to Evan, who's handled this one.
Yes. There was a bond established for some work that was completed at 65 Dorchester Lane that did not comply with the site plan or with the zoning regulations. They built some steps leading up to the front porch in the front setback. They went to the Zoning Board of Appeals last month and were approved to have an additional variance granted for the stairs to be built in the front setback. So they've requested the release of a $500 bond that they put down to get a certificate or a temporary certificate of zoning compliance. And staff recommends the release of the bond in the full amount of $500.
Great. Does someone want to make a recommendation to release the bond for 65 Dorchester Lane for $500?
Fred Russo, so moved.
Motion made by Fred. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo?
Russo in favor.
Joe Vayuzo?
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
And the chair is also in favor. And then we have planners report and
We actually have one more bond.
Yeah,
Oh,
before
one
we
more
go
bond?
there, I'm going to mute Joe again. Sorry, Joe. Though it's not on the agenda, we did receive a request to establish 2 bonds for outstanding grading, landscaping and site work, and modification to elevation contours and grading at 115 Thimble Islands Road. I have a memorandum from Jane Ellis, CEO, who is recommending that 2 bonds be established at amounts of $2,800 for landscaping and site work, and the amount of $2,100 for elevations and regrading. And so you need to take a vote to add that item to the agenda by a 2/3 vote, and then to actually act on the item, I believe.
Great. First, let's move that we add it to the agenda. Someone to make a motion to add to the agenda to establish these 2 bonds as Harry just summarized.
Chadwick makes that motion.
Motion to add to the agenda made by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second?
Fred Russo will second that.
Second by Fred. Further discussion. All those in favor of adding this to the agenda? Joe Chadwick, you in favor?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred, are you in favor?
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuzo, Joe, are you in favor?
I just asked them to unmute, so hang on a second. There you go.
You are unmuted.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy, are you in favor?
Marcy's in favor.
Okay, and chair's also in favor. Okay, now we've added it to the agenda. Let's, someone make a motion to approve the establishment of the 2 bonds as recommended by our zoning enforcement officer, one for 115 Thimble Island Road. One was, I believe, was $2,800 for landscaping. The other was $2,100 for elevations and something else, right?
Grading, yeah.
Great, elevations and grading. Someone make a motion to establish those 2 bonds as recommended by, to approve the establishment of those 2 bonds as recommended by our ZBO.
Fred Russo. Oh, Marcy, go ahead.
Marcy makes that motion.
Marcy makes a motion to establish those 2 bonds. Is there a second?
Fred Russo will second that.
Second by Fred. Any further discussion? Joe Chadwick?
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo?
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuzo?
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
And the chair's also in favor. Okay, is that it for bonds, Evan and Harry?
Yep.
That is it.
Okay, Harry, for planners report, before we get to landscaping, is there anything else besides before we get into that?
All I'd like to mention outside of that, sorry, I'm gonna mute Joe again, is I haven't begun work again on the package of what I've been calling housekeeping amendments that we talked about before the holidays. I'm still not quite back full time in the office, but hope to be doing that within the next week or 2. But first, we got to deal with the Plain Development District proposals. I'll be writing the staff report of that next week. So that's it really for report on other items that I have right off the top of my head. So I guess we can go right back. I don't know if you want to go to the minutes or not.
Well, let me just summarize what my understanding is, and then we'll get back. Just by way of summary, last year there was a proposal. There was private applicants, and Harry helped out with some staff stuff, but to revise our landscaping regulations, which frankly I think needed some revision, including there's some that are existing too harsh now. So in any event, that application ended up being withdrawn. There's some indication that we would not have approved it. So the application was withdrawn, and we said, we'll get back to that in February. So we started thinking about it again in February, and we started talking about, okay, why don't we get some sort of committee to review to another committee going to perhaps draft or come up with something for revisions to our landscaping regulations. And initially, I think there are a number of people had expressed interest. Sharon had expressed interest. Fred had expressed interest. And then we had some discussion about it. And I had raised the issue of, Marcy, valuing her input, both as she's has the education and background on the landscape. She is a landscape architect, and she has some practical experience, and she has some astute comments and about the actual plants and things like that. So she would be good. And then what Fred's main point, as I understood it, is that you wanted whatever community, whatever the group was that was, tackle the initial drafting, had some diversity. That wasn't just from one side, but it represented different community interests. The development community, not just, environmental, but the development. And Fred graciously said, hey, I'm good with Marcy. We appreciate his stuff, her going on it. And then Joe Chadwick made a good point that, wait a minute, we don't, because Joe added, has background in, textural review of regulatory stuff. And I thought, Joe made some great comments last time around. And of the idea that we could do this in a phased approach. You wouldn't you would just dump it and it would come back once and go to public hearing, but maybe we'd be checking back in and we could, nudge it along the way. I thought that was a good point as well. And then there was the issue, well, who do we want on the committee? And there was, there would be probably no more than two, because we don't want to have a quorum of the commission. So only two people. So there's some questions, who are that going to be? But and in my mind, the issue is, part of it is who else is going to be on the committee? Because do we have representative interests? I think the concern was, and I've had Fred and others echoed that we want, a balanced group if possible. And so that was kind of my understanding. But so I'm going to ask Harry, Harry, since the last meeting, have you had further ideas, and who have you spoken to, or what do you have in terms of other people that could be on the committee?
Well, I took what you just mentioned and basically what Marcy put together in her, notes back to Michelle, that the minutes really should be expanded on the conclusion of the discussion to reflect what you just said. And I think that's pretty much, I'll leave it to Marcy to say whether she thinks it matches up with what she was saying in her email to Michelle. I took that as marching orders, basically, to try to formulate a committee matching that. I've reached out to some people reached out to me. I started with one of the applicants, Shirley McCarthy, who's of course interested in being on it. So she's agreed to be on it. I've reached out to Perry Maresca, who had extensive comments and input at the public hearing. He's agreed to be on it. I thought, in terms of getting the balance between, if you will, people representing sort of the environmental community and the economic development community, I approached Elaine Cahill, who's on the Economic Development Commission, and she's taught business development, has been involved in a variety of ways. so she's agreed to be on it. I reached out to commercial real estate broker Greg Robbins. He's agreed to be on it. I also reached out to Jamie Frederick, who expressed some interest in sort of following this, particularly from the wetlands kind of zoning interface. She's agreed to be on it. I also reached out to Patrick Sweeney, who's a professional botanist, and he's, I believe, a member of, if I have the name right, the Conservation and Environment Commission in town, or committee in town. So that is a total of, I think I've counted 9 members. Again, just to reiterate, I think it's really important that as this group goes on and starts meeting, that there be some interaction with the whole commission and some reports back, so that there's sort of an ongoing dialogue about what's going on. Personally, my strong recommendation is that if you're developing a charge for this group, that their charge not be to wordsmith a document. I've worked with groups like this before, and I think it's most useful if they're basically discussing the issues. So I think I would, in conjunction with Sharon and Marcy, talk about the concerns that arose during the public hearing, and of course Perry and Shirley, and try to list those out and start a discussion based on those topical issues and see what falls out. I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for some dialogue and interchange to happen between what can be two kind of different viewpoints on what should be in regulations and how they should control development or not control development. In picking some of the people, I thought it was important to, in addition to people that had a sort of intense interest in the topic, like Shirley and Perry, to get some folks that would come at it with more of a, fresh mindset a little bit, if you will, not really being totally involved in the public hearing process. So that's what I came up with, and let me know what you think.
Okay. Well, I think what we actually need to do then is complete who are the 2 members from the commission. And I know, that was a little bit up in the air. I think Marcy, I've strongly recommended, and I hope, you indicated a willingness to be on the commission. And Sharon, I know you have a deep passion for it. And I'm fully in favor of you being on it, though I know Fred, you indicated a willingness to be on this, but you also, I thought, very graciously agreed to step aside, for Marcy. And I thought that your point was, let's have a representative group. And we've got Perry, from the development side, particularly. And we've got a commercial real estate, Greg Robbins, we've got Perry, Maresca, we've got Elaine Cahill, who's a business developer who's, done that. So my sense is that I'm okay with Marcy and Sharon, but I, and Fred, I don't, and because you indicated, and I don't want to have too many people, and with the other provisos, that is going to come back before us. And, so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get something that we can all live with and not be, frankly, because I want us all to, be a good group. So,
well, Fred Russo, I would say this, Chuck. One, I have no problem with Marcy giving up my position to have Marcy take it. Right, as I said in our last meeting, I absolutely trust her judgment. I think she's got good ideas, and I think she is and will be fair in whatever comes of this. Secondly, I and other members of the commission will still have some say as to what is going to come before us. I guess my position was originally that I just want to make sure that whatever is proposed, and I don't know what it's going to be at this stage of the game, that it didn't come to us so lopsided with just one point of view or a heavily weighted point of view that we would have to do what we did the last time. Was like really kind of beat it up a little bit. And I don't want to see that. I would rather see something come in more balanced where we tweak it instead of having something come before us and just reject it. Because that means all the work that went into it originally, I'm not going to say it was for nothing, but people who made the presentation put a lot of time and effort and thought into it, and then it got crushed. And so I would not want to see the same thing happen a second time, although I was probably the person who was most vocal about crushing it, quite honestly. But that wasn't my intention. My intention was basically to get the attention of the commission and say, hey, listen, if we're going to have a presentation before us, let's have it with more points of view. And I think the group that's now been established, assuming that they've all accepted it, and assuming that if Harry's announced names, they probably have, then I'm okay with it. Because it's not like I'm going to be, unable to speak. Well, I'm going to have an opportunity to speak. So I'm okay with saying to Marcy, you've got my blessing as take my place. And when it comes before us, hopefully it'll come in a better package. So there's just tweaking to be done instead of kind of tearing it apart. So no, I'm good. I'm all right with it.
Oh.
Thanks, Fred. Harry?
Just a comment. I'd recommend, I think, to avoid kind of what you perceived was the issue in terms of something coming at the commission from one perspective. I think at this point, it's probably the best approach for any future application to be something that's generated by the commission itself, which would involve probably a lot more effort by us as staff to codify what the ultimate list of topics you want to handle and how you want them handled, which might start to fall out of this group effort. And hopefully they'll reach some consensus and there'll be a lot of dialogue and exchange of viewpoints back and forth. But it may turn out to be that there's some consensus, and then the commission itself may get some input on one side or another of a particular area of concern or whatever. And I mean, you're probably going to have to, I would want, as staff would request, let me know how you want it written, what you want it to say, so that the final application, even though it could be tweaked by the commission, it would basically represent kind of where the commission is before we even start the process of the application and the hearing. And that's how we've done other things in the past. For example, this package of amendments we talked about in the fall. I just sort of laid out some concerns and issues. I hadn't written much language for a couple of topics I did. And some of them, I proposed a couple of things that the commission may want to consider. You said yes for many things, so no for some things. And so I've got the guidance I need to kind of put together the package that represents pretty much where I think the commission is. Knowing that it's going to be, modified and tweaked, and there'll be public input and all of that. And you may hear something during a public hearing and change something totally around, of course. But does that make any sense? That
Harry,
I think
so. I agree with you. I think that the way the proposed landscaping regs were presented, I'm not saying they were wrong, but I would prefer to see regulations either in the way it's being proposed now, having a subcommittee, as opposed to having people outside the commission come in with the whole set of regulations and say, hey, here's what they are. I said, and I'll repeat myself, I thought that approach was like the tail wagging the dog. I think that if there's a need for any regulation, I don't care if it's landscaping or not, it should come to you. You should be able to sort things out. If you say, hey, listen, this requires a subcommittee, then we form a subcommittee. But then that is a more unified way to bring a variety of ideas to present back to the commission, tweak it from the commission, you tweak it. I just think it's just a better process. The way it was done, and I know it was done with the right intention. I know a lot of work was put into it. I think it's painful that when you put all that work into something and then it all of a sudden gets, crushed 5-0, it's painful. But I think the means that it was presented, that was the problem. Not what they were trying to do or what they were trying to say, but the way it was done. And so I just felt very strongly that what we needed was a more representative group of people making the presentation. And the proposed group I have absolutely no problem on it. I just wanted to make sure that there was just more than a single group of people who are going to, have their say without other people who are going to be directly affected by the regulations, if and when they're in place. And said, hey, what happened? How did this happen? We thought they were okay. I don't know if they need to be changed or not, but I'm absolutely willing to listen to anything that gets proposed by this group. But I was less reluctant to listen when two people make the presentation and it's like, here, you know, you kind of accept it or reject it. I think that really is where it came down to. I don't think, and I didn't talk to anybody in the commission about this. I'm just saying my own personal opinion, but my opinion is I think that commission members in generally said we really did not have enough input into these regulations and who they're going to affect and how they're going to affect people. So I'm happy with what you've proposed and the way you're proposing it and the method we're going to use to get to the right regulations. I'm perfectly fine with it.
Okay. You know, and part of this, I mean, I got to take a little bit of blame for this because when this started out, and frankly, this took about 2.5 to 3 years of back and forthing. I had very little time to devote to this, and we had staff turnover in the beginning of the process here. And I think the two individuals who stepped forward wanted to basically take a little bit of load off staff's shoulders. And, you know, of course, like anybody, they're going to put their own ideas forward. And that's a perfectly legitimate, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it is a perfectly legitimate process for anyone to make an application to amend the zoning regulations. It doesn't mean you need to do it. It just is a perfectly valid process. So
yeah, I don't
know if it's the best process. I agree with you, but so I think this hopefully will result in a better outcome all around.
Harry, I agree with that. I don't have an objection with someone who wants to bring a presentation. I think the end result, you know, when that process was used, it came before the commission, it was unanimous not to accept it. And so I think the commission spoke correctly as a unified group and said, hey, we need a better process. The topic is irrelevant, whether it's landscaping or it's anything else, it's irrelevant. I think what we've learned as a commission is how do we handle when something needs to be changed? Do we let it just, you know, be presented and we take it, even though it's a legitimate process? Or do we take our time and go a little bit more and I agree with your approach, more step by step and kind of, you know, dissecting things. So as I said again, I'll say again, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with what you're going to do. We'll all have a chance, all of us on the commission, we'll have a chance to speak to it if we agree or disagree. So I say move forward.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, one thing again, I mean, I know we checked in, I think you and Marcy were involved in an initial meeting with me just to sort of hear some initial thoughts. And I will take the blame for not following through and doing more of that with the commission. That's where I think it sort of fell down, was it thought it was going in the right direction. And, you know, now we know other folks had other ideas. So great.
Harry, can I say one thing? Don't apologize for doing a good job.
Well, I mean, I can only spread myself so thin. So I was hoping to, you know, bring it back more to the commission in the intermediate steps. And I really,
we'll get there.
It did not. Anyway.
We'll get there.
Yep.
Thanks, Harry and Fred. Other persons have comments? Marcy.
Yes, I've been waiting. You know, I commend you, Harry, for getting a cross section, but I think the people I hear that are missing in that mix are like, you know, when I think of the big applications that have come before us, the people like the attorneys like Marjorie Shansky or John Nuff or John Mancini that are dealing with these developers, I don't think we're going to get the developer in around the table, but I really would like to have maybe a legal perspective, or, you know, I think of John, he's dealing with some of these, you know, larger developers. I don't know Elaine at all. You know, I know.
Well, actually, Elaine is actually a lawyer as well, and she did development of the Citizens Bank property on Montague Street. That's actually her property. So it was a minor development, but she went through the process. So, I mean, I think maybe.
Then that fills the bill, because, you know, I certainly can't speak to anything legal in that. You know, and there's definitely some engineering type, you know, concerns that I think, you know, sometimes come up, you know, because I mean, essentially, let's face it, this is going to be, you know, a density versus environment kind of back and forth discussion, you know, and how do you write a reg that is a balanced approach and protects the environment and still entices people to come and invest in Branford because of what we're doing to to protect the environment, you know, and I think, you know, I just, you know, I'm glad you said Elaine was an attorney, because that helps.
Yeah.
That answers
And, you know, if we need more reach out, I mean, I can try to consider that, you know, on an ad hoc basis, something comes up, you know, I certainly would do that either to our own town council or, you know, some other folks too. So I don't think this needs to be as super rigid, maybe in its boundaries. If, you know, something comes up, we need to reach out in some way, we'll do that.
No, I'm just glad there's an attorney who does land use. That was really my concern.
I don't know if she does land use, but I know she's got a, you know, has a JD. So
I used to work in the same firm she worked in for a while.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, no, I see the legal issues as more procedural than substantive. In other words, particularly the waiver issues and the Kenzie issue. Harry knows what I'm talking about. But those are not, you know, really have nothing to do with the actual substantive, you know, how many trees should be per square foot or anything like that. I think that's, but the whole issue of whether we have authority to what a standard is.
Yeah.
Whether we can waive them, which we can't, because that's why you have to go to the ZBA. But anyway.
All right. You know, just in terms of the potential charge, you know, I want to be mindful and respectful of people's time as well. So I'm thinking, you know, maybe it needs to be expanded. We'll get to that when we get to that, maybe, but maybe a half a dozen meetings over a few months would be sort of the initial. I mean, that's sort of my idea of how to set them off, and I don't know what anybody else's thoughts have.
Yeah, if you could focus, you know, one or two topics to cover a meeting before we come to the meeting, so that we can read and have.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, all right.
You know, and then, you know, I can do my research and hope people in my, you know, and sort of tally people that I know and their perspectives as well.
Okay.
You know, and look up other. I mean, I think we're going to be looking at other towns, their regulations or not, and you know, I mean, that's what I plan to do, is to just reach out to various people I know in the industry to get their opinion and see how that marries up with what's being proposed.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will start working. I mean, I've got sort of a topic list sort of in pieces already, and we'll come up with that. So maybe the initial meeting can be here are all the topics, if you will, that have been areas of concern or whatever, or goals of changing the regulation. And we can talk about what, if you will, the committee will want to really go through, and then chop it up and get through it. I don't know what. Does that make sense?
Productive, and we want to have
absolutely, yeah,
to bring back along the way, so that you know we're not doing this in a vacuum, and that you know everybody's feeling like they contribute. You know,
right, and was heard, and yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
All right, so should I take that as consensus, or?
Yeah, well, let me. I do see Perry Maresca has raised his hand. Perry, you got something quick? I know it's not a public session, but you got something.
Just on that, the only thing I think that we probably don't have on this is a civil engineer firm. Both BL, Criscola, they're at just about every single thing, and they do a lot of development. So I think that we'd be able to hear more about what the issues would arise from any of the thoughts that we have. And at the very least, it gets them aware of some of the things and some of the concerns that we have. So as they're designing and planning out things, they can do that. So I would think if you can maybe reach out to one of those, Harry, and see if you know, John Mancini or Jim Preddy or somebody within their firms might be able to do it, or any other companies that normally come before the P&Z. It might not be a bad idea to consider them.
I think TPA did a really nice job with the affordable housing. You know, didn't they do Parkside and the other Metro Star project?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, let me think about that. I mean, it's already getting to be 9 people, though. My experience, once you get kind of to 9, you're at a sort of the outer limit of a workable group. But let me talk to them. I'm happy to do that and see if maybe, you know, we have a little, like I said, a little fungible boundary where for a meeting or two, and there's some particular topic that makes sense to have some input from them, maybe they're willing to come to a meeting and share some thoughts rather than go through all of the different topics, because I think a lot of that may not really have much to, you know.
Who are the 9 again?
The 9 I've got right now are Sharon, yourself, Marcy, Lane Cahill, Greg Robbins, Shirley McCarthy, Patrick Sweeney, and Jamie Frederick, Perry Maresca, and myself. So that's the group of 9.
And who's Patrick Sweeney again? I'm sorry, I don't know who he is.
Patrick Sweeney is a botanist, and he is a member of the, it's a commission or a committee, the Conservation and Environment.
Sharon Hutner here. He
Yeah.
had, I think he was on the Forest Commission.
That's right, yeah.
And he recently resigned.
Yeah,
as
but I think he's
chair.
also on the
His wife is the head
Heather,
of the
yeah,
Conservation Commission.
yeah, I think he's on the Conservation
On
Commission
that
as
well,
well.
okay.
Yeah. He may have something to do with, I think, one of the Yale museums, if I remember right.
Yeah, he
'Cause
works
I've
for
talked to
the
him previously.
He works for the Peabody.
Okay, yeah. So that's the group I've kind of cobbled together and gotten agreement of members to serve. And I think it's a good point about the engineering firm, but I think, again, maybe I'll see what, rather than try to have a full another member at 9, see if someone wants to contribute, you know, either at certain meetings or on certain topics.
Yeah.
Or just give us a list of what they're concerned about too. But
yeah. I'd be curious.
I mean,
Mancini lives in Branford, and he's mentioned that several times. And I know Jim always defers to the landscape architect, Jim Preddy, and he has so many applications in front of us, and may be a little touchy. But
yeah.
John Mancini, I haven't seen him.
Well,
So,
that's another issue, and you know, I mean,
he's just so connected into the state level and into the big box retailer level, and the, you know, in a way that I know Greg. I don't think Greg isn't boots on the ground the way John Mancini is.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I mean,
he's kind of coming in after the fact and, you know, looking at what's available. So I mean,
I've seen John kind of defer to designers more in terms of, you know, layout, and though he's very knowledgeable about laying a site out, I think he's kind of at a different level.
He manages a firm of architects.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's at a different level beyond, you know,
Yeah,
doing sort of the nitty gritty.
That's what I'm saying. He's dealing with politics on a state level, which I think is just a very interesting perspective. Like I would say, the legal perspective, because, you know, I think people like that are getting out of the town and presenting applications to other towns and have a reference of how, you know, involved or not involved they are with the environment. My dog, sorry. So that's more my concern, whereas, you know, that's all I want to, you know, I'd like to get some people who live in town but are doing a lot of work outside of town in the same manner, so that we can feed off of their knowledge and that's why I was thinking of the attorneys like the John Nuff, because he's always in front of boards doing, you know, various land use, and he's coming across, you know, because everything is really everything is like a circumstantial kind of thing, and every project has its own set of pluses and minuses, you know, what the developer is putting on them, what the land can bear, what the restrictions are. And, you know, I just think that's, you know, we know Branford so intimately, but I just think it's you know, like, and that's where I see my research being, is like seeing what's happening in other towns as far as what people are coming against when they, in their regulations and so forth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will say, you know, I've done a lot of this work in over almost 40 years in 4 states, and I can't remember how many communities. So,
well, as a planner, right? As a planner,
but you know, I'm looking at it in the middle is my take on myself. I hope I'm perceived that way, but that's my role, is to see the developers have rights, butters have rights. You know, everybody's got a stake in the game in the process, and try to defend the process itself and assure, you know, reasonable outcome that, make
Right,
sure
I'm
everyone's
just-
voice is heard. So,
You're doing it for on the bureaucrat side, for the town, which is a little different perspective when it's for profit. And I think
well, that's true.
the for-profit side is what the environment has to be protected from sometimes. And that's why I want the most for-profit in there in a way, so that we can combat it and justify it and know where we stand when we see it in front of us. We've seen it in regards to like historical situations along the water. I mean, we've had a lot of very unique scenarios that I know I've experienced over the last 14, 15 years on the commission. And it's just, it's very different working in the business versus being on the commission. I can tell you that. And that's why I'm kind of pressing, I think it's easy. I mean, we're all trying to do our best to be fair and objective and, and you've seen it, in New London. I know it doesn't get any deeper than that from the
well, I mean, I've been talking to developers and engineers for 40 years. I certainly hear their concerns, and people are not shy in expressing their concerns to me, apart from public meetings where sometimes things are a little more toned down. Sometimes I hear it in a pretty raw form. So, I mean, it's not like I'm sitting in ivory tower here at all, believe me. But you're right. There is a different perspective if you're doing it for a living, is you're advocating for someone in their, development of a particular project, and, and experienced what you folks all do in different contexts, different communities. But let me give some thought to that. But, as a standing body, 9 members is pretty much, it gets really kind of unwieldy. I've worked with a lot of groups over a lot of years, and that's pretty much minus, kind of the limit. But let me think about it. So am I getting any direction at this point? You want to think about it again the next meeting? You want me to go ahead and start to think about what to do to get a group going, or what do you want to do?
I think you should go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Does everyone agree? That's just me, but yeah, let's move, right? Why not? Are others who haven't, anyone else want to comment on this? I didn't want to show them off. I think we know who the composition is, with the possibility of maybe a civil engineer and maybe just coming for sessions. But I think that's and there's no reason not to get started. So I go with it, and then you can check in, and we can get moving.
Okay.
Great. So if that's okay, then
I got to take silence as golden and go ahead.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and why don't we try to fix the minutes at the next meeting too, or maybe massage.
Yeah, I mean, I think if everyone's in agreement or nobody objects, I'll just take the email we got from Marcy that went to Michelle, and I'll have her basically insert pretty much that language into the minutes and ship them back to you for review at the next meeting.
Sure, that sounds great. Marcy?
And just correct Massimo's spelling of his last name.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Get a tutorial point on the minutes.
Thanks, Marcy.
Come on, Massimo, you should have noticed that right off the bat.
He's used to
everyone check this.
Yes, I should have.
It doesn't occur to me with the last name of Smith to check the spelling of my last name usually. So I don't think about that for other people either. I don't know why, but all right.
You got an I and an A.
There you go.
Okay.
So that's all I've got. Evan, do you have anything?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else got anything?
Good.
If not then I guess someone can make a motion. Want to make a motion to adjourn?
Fred Russo makes that motion.
Motion to adjourn by Fred. Is there a second?
Marcy seconds.
Second by Marcy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuso.
You are unmuted.
Joe Vayuso's in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair's also in favor. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.